quite silly. All right, it's telling me we're good. Is the audio clipping? I feel like I hear clipping. Let me see. Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Sounds a little bit hot, huh? It's all right. Okay, so welcome to, you're not supposed to say that, actually. YouTube says do not bother to welcome people to your stuff. So scratch that. Forget that I offended you by welcoming you here. I've been doing this series of secret streams for over a year now, I think, maybe even 2 years on Masonic secrets because it takes forever. Let me mark this so I can close the book for a second. And as our guide, I'm using a big, thick Masonic tome from 1851, written by Albert Pike, who was the Grand Commander was his title, Grand Commander of the Southern Jurisdiction of the United States, 33rd degree. And in the front of the book, it has this, I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but it says, prepared for the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree for the Southern Jurisdiction of the United States and published by its authority. Esoteric book for Scottish Rite use only, to be returned upon withdrawal or death of recipient. And so it is called Morals and Dogma, and it is an extraordinary work, and it really challenges a lot of the pop culture beliefs about what Freemasonry is. In particular, that it's some evil luciferian blood-drinking cult that's out to control the world. The reality is that there are many factions of secret societies in the world that have a lot of power. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Freemasons are not all good. There are Freemasons that are egomaniacs, assholes, lunatics, and probably even pure evil. But the overwhelming majority are actually, in Albert Pike's words, let me see if I can find this real quick. I mean, you guys, as soon as you get past the first, two paragraphs, you immediately understand that these Masons are magicians, and you can see that they're talking about engineering and guiding, I was going to say manipulating, populations by thinking of them as if they're energy and in terms of geometry. And that is the real secret of magic. You know, people fail at magic a lot because they try to do things that are not possible. They think they're going to just manifest money out of thin air or, all sorts of silly off the rails on the woo-choo train sort of affairs. And the reality is that you have to understand the fundamental laws of nature and work with them. That's what real natural magic is. And so immediately, he starts describing this process. And actually, let's go back. I'm gonna give you guys a few. Let's just do this. Let's just start at the beginning, and then we'll jump to where we are on my Patreon, because this is definitely a shameless promotion for my Patreon, which I'm really trying to build up right now because I am in a magical place full of ruins. I have just been informed of this place called the Temple of the Sun, which apparently is little known, but better than Machu Picchu. And I have an opportunity to go with a local ruins expert. And the thing is about people that offer services, they want to be paid for stuff. So, with my channel making $600 a month or whatever it is now, not that I'm not grateful to all my amazing patrons, I certainly am. And the community is actually strong enough that they bailed me out of some serious shit recently. So I have no complaints, but we need to do better. I need to do better. So definitely encouraging people to join the IllumiGnati. And it's actually becoming kind of a strong community. People are building real meaningful relationships. And I'm really trying to bring people with skills into the circle so that we can really collaborate to build something that has some influence and power. Because some of the rules in this world are unfortunately dictated to us and not by us. And one of those is that money is power. People that pursue spirituality oftentimes think they don't need money and don't care about it. And people that pursue money and power don't care about spirituality. This is not acceptable. So we have to re-engineer the world. Basically, big plans, little people. So let me see. I'm trying to pull up my recent additions to the IllumiGnati. Kajime or Kahame or Kahime, I'm not really sure. Adrian and Julian Steff are all new patrons, and I appreciate you guys tremendously. And so if it seems like I'm a little bit stuttery tonight, I definitely am. I had my first gig in 3 years last night, and it was not really great. I played and sang wonderfully, but I only got 4 hours of sleep, so my voice was kind of tight, and the rural Peruvians were just like, what the fuck is this crap? It was really, they booked me before the wrong person. He's like a really innocent, folky pop star kind of person. Really sweet guy, no ego. You know, all the girls mobbed him, and then he waited for them to leave, and then came and hung out with the guys. Like, pretty impressed with his character, but it was the wrong pairing, you know? So the first time in my life that I've just absolutely slayed shit, and then there's no applause. Like, there's a packed bar, club, really, two-story club, people. I mean, there were some people that were from Lima and Cusco that were like way into it, and that helped. You know, there was definitely some, like, the few people that had really over the top, but man, so anyways, I'm very tired from all of this. Usually I'm a little bit quicker, but I'm exhausted. That's why there's Coca on my shirt. You guys see? Coca-Cola. And there's Coca in my mouth. Okay, so the introduction to this book, The Apprentice. Force, unregulated or ill-regulated, is not only wasted in the void, like that of gunpowder burned in the open air, and steam unconfined by science, but striking in the dark, and its blows meeting only the air, they recoil and bruise itself. It is destruction and ruin. It is the volcano, the earthquake, the cyclone, not growth and progress. It is Polyphemus blinded, striking at random and falling headlong among the sharp rocks by the impetus of his own blows. So one thing that I might add here is that a very wise magician once said that the most complete set of talents and virtues is totally useless in the absence of willpower and discipline. So the acquisition of power in the absence of wisdom, which is something that I actually experienced, and trust me, you don't want that. You don't want to go there. Too much enthusiasm that isn't mitigated by wisdom is just destruction and ruin, you know. So there's a lot of ways to contextualize this stuff. And in this case, he's talking about the necessity to guide the blind masses of the people, you know. The blind force of the people is a force that must be economized and managed, as the blind force of steam lifting the ponderous iron arms and turning the large wheels is made to bore and rifle the cannon and to weave the most delicate lace. It must be regulated by intellect. Intellect is to the people and the people's force what the slender needle of the compass is to the ship, its soul, always counseling a huge mass of wood and iron and always pointing to the north. To attack the citadels built upon all sides against the human race by superstition, religion, despotism, and prejudice. The force must have a brain, and it must have a law. Then its deeds of daring produce permanent results, and there is real progress. Then there are sublime conquests. Thought is a force, and philosophy should be an energy, finding its aim and its effects in the amelioration of mankind. Not to enslave it, not to control it, not to make it stupid. The amelioration of mankind from religion, despotism, superstition, ignorance, prejudice. The two great motors are truth and love. When all of these forces are combined and guided by the intellect and regulated by the rule of right and justice and of combined and systematic movement and effort, the great revolution prepared for by the ages will begin to march. Kind of seems like that's happening and there are people trying to suppress it. It's not Freemasons. The power of the deity himself is in equilibrium with his wisdom. Remember what I was saying in the beginning of this? That, too much enthusiasm that isn't tempered by wisdom is a train wreck. The power, how did he put that? The power of the deity himself is in equilibrium with his wisdom. This is absolutely essential. Trust me. You get that shit out of balance and you're just going to be a sad puppy, a sad panda. But you get it right, you can move mountains. Hence, the only results in divine thought and action are harmony. And it's true that all natural systems tend towards homeostasis. That's why we know that if civilization is full of conflict, somebody's shaking the ant farm. Because it doesn't matter whether you're talking about, dirt and water, or an ant farm, or, whatever it is, quantum systems, whatever. The tendency is to homeostasis. So, riddle me that, Batman. What the hell's going on? It is because force is ill-regulated that revolutions prove failures. Therefore, it is that so often insurrections against evil, coming from those high moral mountains that domineer over the moral horizon, justice, wisdom, reason, right, built on the purest snow of the ideal after a long fall from rock to rock, because wisdom is gained from beating your head into things, basically, más o menos, es verdad. Beating your head from rock to rock until you suddenly have a revelation and wake the fuck up, after having reflected the sky in their transparency and been swollen by 100 effluents. Remember, we're talking about revolutions now. So he's saying even when they're coming from moral high ground and they are powerful, swollen from many tributaries, and they're built in the purest ideals of wisdom, reason, right, regardless of that, even having reflected the sky in their transparency, which is, they're honest and real, in the majestic path of triumph, right at the finish line, suddenly they lose themselves in quagmires like a California river in the sands. We can't have that. The onward march of the human race requires that the heights around it should blaze with noble and enduring lessons of courage. Deeds of daring dazzle history and form one class of the guiding lights of man. Now, has it occurred to you that none of the conspiracy theorists on Earth have actually bothered to read this stuff, obviously? Like, none of them. You know that the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati's papers were seized in 1776? And I'm talking about like his private writings from his sock drawer. You can read them online. 100% of conspiracy theorists have not done this. I mean, you think if you want to know about something, instead of just like reading whatever the other lunatic on the internet said, you would go to the fucking horse's mouth, and see what he had written in his private diary. And you know what he said, basically? The same thing that I do. Reason and illumination can be taught, and, all of the tools that are used to divide people should be erased from the face of the earth, and all this, you know what I mean? It's nothing like, it's the exact opposite of what people are spoon-fed on the internet. Like literally the exact opposite. Probably every single person watching this stream right now, if you go read the Weishaupt papers, bearing in mind that he sometimes was dealing with Christians and he had to put on a face, and sometimes he would pretend to be Christian. Aside from that, every one of you would be printing, Adam Weishaupt for president, bumper stickers, like president of Earth. I mean, it's just crazy, That's why I'm always saying you really have to be suspicious of the alternative narratives, because that's where the bulk of the propaganda actually is. Those are the people that they're trying to dissuade from finding power and truth, And I noticed when I said that, a bunch of people popped off. Okay, go ahead, maintain your delusions and ignorance, continue to be part of the problem. Like, oh my God, this guy just said the Illuminati are good. Yeah, you dumbass. Why do you think they taught you to hate them and be afraid of them? You know what I mean? It's not that hard to understand. I mean, everyone knows they use Orwellian tactics, but then when you're told that you have been infected with an Orwellian propaganda bit, you know, the people, what happens is fight or flight reflex. That's why it's so hard to undo it, right? Because your biases, your cognitive biases are connected to your survival instinct. So once you have a cognitive dissonance, or you know, any one of these different type of you know, dissonance, when someone challenges it, once it's implanted, the response is fight or flight. So that's why it's so effective. You know, by the way, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Don't forget that this is a promo for my Patreon. Please support me. I'm demonetized and I'm trying to do good shit. So, you know, it's commendable if you become part of the community and help us to grow. And on the Patreon, there's, you know, you can have FaceTime for flow state lifestyle guidance and guitar lessons and 5 years of secret streams. Sometimes I premiere videos there a few days before they're public. I also occasionally put out patron-only content on plant medicine and shamanic techniques, and you know, there's one about working with tobacco and whatnot. So there's various and sundry useful things there. Oh, and I should also say, you don't get access to the secret streams unless it's a $10 tier or higher. So there's that. So where are we at with this? This is not what I had planned, by the way. It's just so good and so important that I thought we should just start here. And by the way, we have already done degree 27, I think, which is, I don't remember right now. I'm too tired to dredge up that title. But that one was incredible. I think we're doing the Night of the Brazen Serpent right now, like 25, and I put 26 in the title. It's actually 25. So we've done like 28, 26, and I think we're working through 25 right now, Night of the Brazen Serpent, and it's crazy. Ask my patrons that are in the chat, man. The last couple of, we had to go back and go through it all again because there's just so much. You're just mining alchemical gold out of this stuff for, you know, almost infinitely. I mean, I've been studying it off and on. See, I found this book from a dream. I was looking for it, and I didn't use the internet, so it didn't occur to me to just check Amazon or something. And I think it was like 2010. And I had a dream that it was on the shelf in a local bookstore in Durango, Colorado, and I wanted a witness, so I told my girlfriend, and I woke her up, and I was like, we're going to go get Morals and Dogma. It's at the used bookstore. And I went down there, and it was right where it was in the dream, and that's how I acquired this book here. Yeah, that's wild shit, man. So at any rate, where were we at? The onward march of the human race requires that the heights around it should blaze with noble and enduring lessons of courage, deeds of daring dazzle history, and form one class of the guiding lights of man. They are the stars and coruscations from that great sea of electricity, the force inherent in the people. To strive, to brave all risks, to die, to persevere, to be true to oneself, to grapple body to body with destiny, to surprise defeat by the little terror it inspires, to confront unrighteous power, to defy intoxicated triumph. These are the examples that the nations need and the light that electrifies and guides them. There are immense forces in the great caverns of evil beneath society, in the hideous degradation, squalor, wretchedness, and destitution, vices and crime that reek and simmer in the darkness in that populace below the people of great cities. Their disinterestedness vanishes. Everyone howls, searches, gropes, and gnaws for himself. Ideas are ignored, and of progress there is no thought. The populace has two mothers, both of them stepmothers, ignorance and misery. This populace, this evil populace. Want is their only guide. For their appetite alone they crave satisfaction. Yet even these may be employed. Even these evil ones have purpose, otherwise they would not exist. One of the great lessons of Masonry, and really the esoteric, Western esoteric tradition in general, is the understanding of the law of necessity. All is as it is because it must be in order for creation to sustain itself. And so I think understanding the law of necessity, which the modern version of the Illuminati, the Pythagorean Illuminati, they call this the principle of sufficient reason, which is really just a rebranding of the law of necessity. But it really is a tremendously powerful idea to really wrap your head around, because it explains everything if you really go deep enough in it. And that comes with a warning. You know, this type of knowledge, eventually, when you sink deep enough into it, there are things that many people do not want to understand. And once you understand these things, it's too late. You can't go back. So know that that's real. It is very real. And it's kind of a red blue pill kind of scenario. The lowly sand we trample upon, cast into a furnace, melted and purified by fire, may become resplendent crystal. They have the brute force of the hammer, but their blows help on the great cause, when struck within the lines traced by the rule held by wisdom and discretion. So they're kind of talking, he's kind of saying that, you know, you can employ all forces to the singular end. In fact, it's not really necessary that we employ them to any end, because they're employed by the laws of the universe to conduct themselves towards an inevitable result. And that inevitable result is a phase of fluctuating nothingness, really. But you can kind of think of it as an equation balancing of opposites canceling each other until the equation is resolved. And so that, again, the law of necessity, you know, it does not permit you to become evil to understand the function and purpose of evil in the world. It does have one. That's why the brothers of the right-hand path in the White Lodge do not look down on the black brothers, and they do not hate them. They know that they serve a purpose. There's no diamonds without pressure. There's no story without a conflict. And so, you know, when we look out into the world and we say, why, well, guess what? There are answers that have been occulted from us that are actually our birthright. And once you understand all of that, again, it doesn't negate the circumstances, but it certainly lends perspective. And that allows you to move much more freely in the world, and with much more awareness and with less dissonance, because you have clarity. Yet it is this very force of the people, this titanic power of the giants, that builds the fortifications of tyrants and is embodied in their armies. Hence the possibility of such tyrannies as those of which it has been said that Rome smells worse under Vitellius than under Sulla. Under Claudius and under Domitian, there is a deformity of baseness corresponding to the ugliness of the tyranny. The foulness of the slaves is a direct result of the atrocious baseness of the despot. A miasma exhales from these crouching consciences that reflect their master. The public authorities are unclean. Their hearts are collapsed. I think I skipped on mass. Reflects the master. The public authorities are unclean. Hearts are collapsed. Conscience is shrunken, and souls puny. This is so under Caracalla. It is so under Commodus, and it is so under Helioglobulus, Trump, Biden, Putin, you name it. It is so under Helioglobulus, while from the Roman Senate under Caesar, there comes only the rank odor peculiar to the eagle's eyrie. I'm not sure what that last line means. I'm actually very curious. I think he was saying that Caesar was good, and that's why they killed him. I'm not really sure. It is the force of the people that sustains all these despotisms. the basest as well as the best. That force acts through armies, and these oftener enslave than liberate. Despotism there applies the rule. Force is the mace of steel at the saddle bow of the knight or of the bishop. Passive obedience by force supports thrones and oligarchies, Spanish kings and Venetian senates. Might in an army wielded by tyranny is the enormous sum total of utter weakness. Man, that is gangster. This dude had a way with words, man. What do you... Might in an army wielded by tyranny is the enormous sum total of utter weakness. And so humanity wages war against humanity in despite of humanity. So a people willingly submits to despotism, and its workmen submit to be despised, and its soldiers to be whipped. Therefore it is that battles lost by a nation are often progress attained. Less glory is more liberty. When the drum is silent, reason sometimes is permitted to speak. Tyrants use the force of the people to chain and subjugate, that is, to enyoke the people. Then they plow with them, as men do with oxen yoked. Thus, the spirit of liberty and innovation is reduced by bayonets, and principles are struck dumb by cannon shot, while the monks mingle with the troops, and the church is militant and jubilant, Catholic or Puritan, and sings Te Deums for victories over rebellion. The military power not subordinate to the civil power, again, the hammer or mace of force, independent of the rule, is an armed tyranny, born full grown as Athene sprung from the brain of Zeus. It spawns a dynasty and begins with Caesar to rot into Vitellius and Commodus. At the present day, it inclines to begin where former dynasties ended. Constantly, the people put forth immense strength, only to end in immense weakness. The force of the people is exhausted in indefinitely prolonging things long since dead, in governing mankind by embalming old dead tyrannies of faith, restoring dilapidated dogmas, regilding faded worm-eaten shrines, whitening and rouging ancient and barren superstitions, saving society by multiplying parasites, perpetuating superannuated institutions, enforcing the worship of symbols as the actual means of salvation, and tying the dead corpse of the past mouth to asshole with the living present. Jesus. Holy shit, man. I mean, I've read this a million times, but still, it's like, oh, wow, dude. 1851, too. Like, ain't shit changed. Ain't shit changed, man. Damn, dude. Worm-eaten shrines, regilding worm-eaten shrines, whitening and rouging ancient and barren superstitions, attempting to save society by multiplying parasites, perpetuating superannuated institutions, enforcing the worship of symbols as the actual means of salvation, and tying the dead corpse of the past mouth to mouth with the living present. I changed the word mouth to asshole because that just is better, but he did say mouth to mouth. Therefore it is that it is one of the fatalities of humanity to be condemned to eternal struggles with phantoms, with superstitions, bigotries, hypocrisies, prejudice, and formulas of error, and the pleas of tyranny. Despotisms seen in the past become respectable as the mountains, bristling with volcanic rock, rugged and horrid, seen through the haze of distance as blue and smooth and beautiful. It's not till you get up close that you can see how porous and jagged and, The sight of a single dungeon of tyranny is worth more to dispel illusion and create a holy hatred of despotism and to direct the force of the people aright than the most eloquent volumes. The French should have preserved the Bastille as a perpetual lesson. Italy should not destroy the dungeons of the Inquisition. The force of the people maintained the power that built its cells and placed the living in their granite sepulchres. The force of the people cannot, by its unrestrained and fitful action, maintain and continue in action and existence a free government once created. Now, let's hit that shit one more time, right? The force of the people cannot, by its unrestrained and fitful action, maintain and continue in action and existence a free government once created. Estados Unidos. Escuchas? Are you listening? Wait a minute, that'd be like escuchando, no? The tenses still are killing me down here, man. So what is this, it's not tenses. What is the word for that? It doesn't matter. That force must be limited, restrained, conveyed by distribution into different channels, and by roundabout courses to outlets, whence it is to issue as the law, action, and decision of the state, as the wise old Egyptian kings conveyed in different canals by subdivision the swelling waters of the Nile, and compelled them to fertilize and not to devastate the land. There must be the jus et norma, the rule and law, or gauge of constitution and law, within which the public force must act. Make a breach in either, and the great steam hammer, with its swift and ponderous blows, crushes all the machinery to atoms, and at last, wrenching itself away, lies inert and dead amid the ruin that it has wrought of itself. The force of the people, or the popular will, in action and exerted, symbolized by the gavel, regulated and guided by and acting within the limits of law and order, symbolized by the 24-inch rule, has for its fruit liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty regulated by law, equality of rights in the eye of the law, brotherhood and its duties and obligations as well as its benefits. So I think we're going to leave this. Oh, no, we're getting into sacred numbers now. Yeah, there's probably quite a few people have popped on and been like, wait a minute, I thought this was about the occult. This is just politics. There's no difference. There's no difference. In fact, the master of the temple that invited me into the Scottish Rite, 32nd degree cop with a criminal record, ex-cop with a criminal record, I said something like, before he was allowed to speak freely, I asked him, isn't it really an occult organization? Like, I've got the book, dude. I know what this is really about, you know? And he said, isn't it all occult? And that answer really, you know, stopped me dead in my tracks because, you know, it's the truth, you know, the whole entire matrix, not the man-made matrix, but the entirety of reality is some sort of configuration of consciousness, and there is some sort of will that moves it. And magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And so, you know, if you're coming to the occult to try to escape from reality, or in order to converse with demons, or, you know, to try to make yourself rich, or whatever kind of stupid shit, you know, what this is for, what my occult practices are for, is for engineering the individual according to their own highest potential, and translating that or integrating that into a movement that has for its aims the amelioration of mankind from despotism, superstition, religion, slavery, and dumb fuckery in all of its forms. So, when, you know, anyone that thinks all this stuff is not relevant to an occultist is just not really an occultist, and they don't know what we're doing, why we're doing it, or, you know, those are the silly asses that need to bounce anyways, because they're of no, you know, I mean, they have a purpose, but the purpose is not here with us. It is elsewhere. Yeah, we're actually going to continue with this a little bit more. And then, let's see, how long have we been going? 34 minutes? A little bit longer, by the way, patrons. I was going to do another stream tonight, but I'm so tired that I'm going to do it on Wednesday when I get back from the city. So no secret stream tonight. This is just a teaser to try to bring more IllumiGnati into the fold of the IllumiGnati so we can continue to exist and maybe even make some shit happen, some worthy, righteous stuff. You will hear shortly of the rough ashlar and the perfect ashlar as part of the jewels of the lodge. The rough ashlar is said to be a stone, as taken from the quarry, in its rude and natural state. The perfect ashlar is said to be a stone made ready by the hands of the workman to be adapted by the working tools of the fellow craft. We shall not repeat the explanation of these symbols given by the York Rite. You may read them in its printed monitors. They are declared to allude to the self-improvement of the individual craftsman, a continuation of the same superficial interpretation. The rough ashlar is the people, as a mass, rude and unorganized. The perfect ashlar, or cubical stone, symbol of perfection, is the state, the rulers deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. That's how it's supposed to be. He's not saying that's how it is. It's how it's supposed to be. The Constitution and laws speaking the will of the people, the government harmonious, symmetrical, efficient, in powers properly distributed and duly adjusted in equilibrium. If we delineate a cube on a plane surface thus, and there's a picture of a cube. You know what a cube looks like. You don't need to see it. We have 3 faces and 9 external lines drawn between 7 points. The complete cube has 3 more faces, making 6, 3 more lines, making 12, and 1 more point, making 8. As the number 12 includes all the sacred numbers, 3, 5, 7, and 3 times 3 or 9, and is produced by adding the sacred number 3 to 9, while its own 2 figures, 1 and 2, the unit or monad, and duad added together make the same sacred number 3. It was called the perfect number, and the cube became the symbol of perfection. Produced by force, acting by rule, hammered in accordance with lines measured by the gauge out of the rough ashlar, it is an appropriate symbol of the force of the people, expressed as the constitution and law of the state, and the state itself. The 3 visible faces represent the 3 departments: the executive, which executes the law; the legislative, which makes the laws; the judiciary, which interprets the laws, applies and enforces them between man and man, between state and citizen. The 3 invisible faces are liberty, equality, and fraternity, and threefold soul of the state, its vitality, spirit, and intellect. And so eventually, they go way, he goes way into numbers, numerology, and whatnot. This foundational chapter that seems to be focused more on, I mean, you can see the occult in it. You know, there's reference to sacred numbers and sacred geometry and seeing, you know, populations as energy systems. And making the allegory between geometries and, you know, like he just did. A better example actually is the pyramid, because the pyramid is the most stable shape, and so that's why it's the symbol of this empire, right? And if you think about the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, you have a circle, and then you have 4 points, and then you have, in my rendering of it, you have a 5th element, the light, or consciousness, the quintessence, the magician himself. And it's not until you create a point that is up and you draw lines from those 4 corners that you have a pyramid. And what is at the top of the pyramid? The 5th element, consciousness, and that's what creates a habitable universe, right? So there's way more to these things than meets the eye at the top of the pyramid. And so another thing that I was going to offer regarding that is that the cube also, if you explode a cube, what happens? You get a cross. So the Rosy Cross is actually a symbol, the Rosicrucian cross, all crosses really, are a symbol of this exploded cube, this perfect rough ashlar. And the cube being a symbol of stability, right? A square, 4 sides, the number 4 is the number of stability. This is the reason that rituals commence with the 4-fold breath, because you are trying to stabilize your microcosm. And so by measuring your breaths in a cube, you're creating stability upon which you can construct your universe. And so the first step is to use the breath, which is the symbol of the life force, to get control, conscious control of what is normally subconscious, which is really the entire process of becoming an obsessimus, and really, becoming a fully realized, holistically homeostatic, fully conscious being. It's the necessity is to build a stable foundation before you can create your idealized universe, which is really what the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram is about. Just while we're on the subject, of course, there are in my Patreon detailed instructions on the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And I also made a video some years ago in the jungle about the symbolism, and I think I got a couple of the directions out of sync, so yes, I'm aware of that. I just misspoke. Stop ranting in the comments about it. So, three individuals. Okay, so though Masonry neither usurps the place of nor apes religion, prayer is an essential part of our ceremonies. But the prayer is not directed at deity. It is directed at the object of, the thing that you're trying to influence. Gunpowder lost in the void, steam lost in the void, unconfined. It is the aspiration of the soul toward the absolute and infinite intelligence, which is the one supreme deity, most feebly and misunderstandingly characterized as the architect. And so, in a sense, it is at a deity. But in this framework, when you talk about the creator and you talk about deity, it's almost as equivalent. It's like an equivalent to just talk about a field of consciousness. The electromagnetic field that permeates everything. And as you'll see, it's basically panpsychism, but there's also the idea that there's sort of an sum total of all of this consciousness. And so that is kind of, when we talk about God or the creator, that's kind of what is meant, but it certainly is not like a sky being that's sitting around judging people and manipulating human affairs and whatever. So certain faculties of man are directed toward the unknown: thought, meditation, and prayer. The unknown is an ocean of which conscience is the compass. Thought, meditation, prayer are the great mysterious pointings of the needle. It is a spiritual magnetism that thus connects the human soul with the deity. These majestic irradiations of the soul pierce through the shadow toward the light. And, this is what's missing in most religion and spiritual systems, modern spiritual systems. People think that it's like some magical woo that's disconnected from the natural processes of the universe. It's not true. When he talks about how it's a magnetism that connects us with this ultimate consciousness, it's literally electromagnetism. It's literally light. You know what I mean? It's literal. Like this, he means exactly what he said. It's not an allegory. Everything, the law of necessity, like magic is real, but it is limited by the laws that, it's constrained by the laws of nature. Even the deity itself is constrained by its own laws. That's why if you pray to God to do something impossible, it's just not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Nothing will ever happen that overrides any of the laws of nature. It's not how it works. So telepathy is real, but there's a mechanism behind it. Precognition is real, but it probably is all about pattern recognition in the subconscious. I'm not saying that there is nothing more to reality, obviously, but there's a science and the same tactics that you employ to understand the normal world should apply to your spirituality and metaphysics and whatnot. Because the same laws govern the totality of this phase of creation that we have access to. There may be other phases, but as long as we are here, there are certain parameters that everything operates within. Magnetism. These majestic irradiations of the soul pierce through the shadow toward the light. It is but a shallow scoff to say that prayer is absurd, because it is not possible for us, by means of it, to persuade God to change his plans. The deity produces foreknown and foreintended effects by the instrumentality of the forces of nature, all of which are the forces of its mind. Our own are part of these. This is essential, and this is why you have been taught that Freemasonry and the Illuminati and the occult and everything are bad. What he just said there. The forces of the deity are the forces of nature, and we are part of those. Our will is co-equal to the Most High God, and it's because that's a misconception. There's no hierarchy, there's no hierarchy. It's like, I have a cell, I can't see it, but I know it's there. There's a cell right there, and there's another cell here. Neither of them are higher. They're cells. And so the idea is that this consciousness sort of expanded and integrated into its creation. It's everywhere and everything, but it's just the exploded consciousness and energy. There's no authority that you need to bow down and grovel to. You are co-equal to the Most High God, in a sense. It's important to remember that, in a sense. You have limitations that come with being human, but beyond that, do as thou wilt is indeed the whole of the law. But love is the law. Love under will. But that's the idea here, that we are indeed little splinters of this deity, and therefore part of it, and just part of it, not below it, not above it, not, part of it. Our free agency and our will are forces. We do not absurdly cease to make efforts to attain wealth or happiness, prolong life, and continue health, because we cannot by any effort change what is predestined. You still got to get up and do it. If the effort also is predestined, it is not any less our effort made of our free will. So likewise, we pray. Will is a force. Thought is a force. Why should it not be the law of God that prayer, like faith and love, should have effects? Man is not to be comprehended as a starting point or progress as a goal without these two great forces, faith and love. I disagree about the faith part. I think that faith is the death of intelligence, at least belief. I mean, you have to have faith in some ways and to a certain extent, but you should never have faith in anything without evidence. That is not there, and fear not that any God would deny thee for this. It's silly, and it's not. Its intelligence is a very desirable attribute. I don't think that any higher being is going to find fault with you for employing it to your advantage in navigating the universe. I mean, it's just, obviously that is a slave mentality trap. Drink and dance all night with faith, and you will awaken to find a corpse in your arms in the morning. Drink and dance all night with doubt, and you will find her a virgin upon awakening. So, doubt makes a excellent mistress, but a nagging wife. Prayer is sublime. Orisons that beg and clamor are pitiful, right? The Shuar, who I studied ayahuasca with in Ecuador, they say, sit up when you pray. They don't even like it when you lay down on ayahuasca. Show respect for yourself, or the spirit is a reflection of you. So if you're groveling and fucking prostrated on the ground, it's just going to fucking stomp you into the earth. What is this pathetic bullshit here? It's not what you want to do. You want to sit up, have respect for yourself, have respect for it. Like, you're not trying to be arrogant, but you want to sit up when you pray. Take your tobacco, focus your minds, because it is the mind And the tobacco focuses it like a laser, so it's better able to have an effect on the thing that it is aimed at. Because it's all just electromagnetism. I mean, there's more to it, but that's an easy way to understand it. To deny the efficacy of magic is to deny that of faith, love, and effort. Yet, the effects produced when our hand, moved by our will, matter, moved by mind, launches a pebble into the ocean, never cease. And every uttered word is registered for eternity upon the invisible air. So, speak not falsehoods. All falsehoods are evil. All falsehood is evil, all of it. There are varying degrees of evil, so all falsehoods do not have the same power to cause evil effects, but it's all evil. So knowing that we have the law of entrainment, so that everything that is cycling is syncing up together, you are obligated to pull the human race upwards if possible, right? We know from entanglement that every single particle that's ever been connected remains connected despite the distance. And so the weight of the universe literally is on your shoulders. Everything you do, the entire universe responds. Every thought you have, every breath you take, every fart, fucking everything you do affects the entire universe on a minute scale, but nevertheless, it matters. Every word that you utter is carried upon the air, the ether, for all of eternity. No information is lost at the quantum level. So, do not profane the air with wasted speech or untruths, because that stain is eternal upon the face of creation. Every lodge is a temple, and as a whole, and in its details, symbolic. The universe itself supplied man with the model of the first temples reared to the divinity. Something profound here. The universe itself supplied man with the model for the first temples. Wait a minute, no, it was before. Every lodge is a temple, and as a whole, and in its details, symbolic. Just like the universe. There's a really brilliant quote from this author that said, all that is metaphor. And so the idea is that there's a veil between worlds, sort of. It's actually like a Fourier transform, and it converts the ideal to the actual. And so, and you can see it. You can see the universal mind when you realize that the sun is the symbol for gold. In fact, many occultists believe that physical gold is crystallized consciousness or crystallized sunlight. And Mercury, the closest planet to the sun, if you knock a proton, which can be done with an electric charge, we now can do this, alchemy in a laboratory. Mercury becomes gold. It's the closest element to gold. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. No human being engineered these circumstances, nor is it a coincidence. And so Mercury is the mediator, the sun, to the sun, the god, basically, right? So the metal mercury was used by certain Aztec, it's not the Aztecs, but it's like an offshoot. They speak Nahuatl too. They put motes of mercury around the sarcophagus or whatever, the tomb of the dead, in order to ferry them to the next world. Mercury, the god, also is a psychopomp that ferries people to the next world. So, you telling me that that all is just like what? How the fuck did that happen? That Mercury the god does the same thing as Mercury the metal, and then Mercury the planet also, you know what I mean? Like, it's just too much to write off. especially the elemental part of it, where you knock a proton off of Mercury and it's gold, and it's like Mercury's right here, and it's and that also suggests what? That the alchemists were successful because they clearly knew, Tell me again how the Templars almost took over the world. It's not like they were making gold their basement or something. And so the arrangement of the temples of Solomon, the symbolic ornaments which formed its chief decorations, and the dress of the high priests, all had reference to the order of the universe as then understood. The temple contained many emblems of the seasons, the sun, the moon, the planets, the constellations Ursa Major and Minor, the zodiac, the elements, and other parts of the world. It is the master of this lodge of the universe, Hermes, of whom Kurum is the representative, that is one of the lights of the lodge. Hermes is, of course, also Thoth. Mercury, which we happen to just be talking about. And then now there is a little bit of interesting trivia that I have for you guys. Really, if you want to hear the whole story, check out my Blue Star Hopi. I'm definitely nearing the end of my energy, so I think we're done with the Masonic stuff. Trust me, it gets, oh man, I just took my marker out of the book. Now I got to figure out where we were. So if you join the Patreon, you will have access to years of this work, amongst a whole bunch of other shit. And then also we're continuing working through the entire book until we are done. And interestingly, the 33rd degree secret, there's nothing there. The book just ends at the 32nd. And also, I was informed by that same master of the lodge that there is something above the 33rd degree, and I thought I knew everything about Freemasonry that you could know without joining. In fact, when I was talking to him before I joined, because they can't ask you to join, really, I started grilling him. I cornered him in the temple because I wasn't sure. I didn't like the Masons that were there in the temple. They were all like redneck businessmen or something, and Christian, and I was like, man, this sucks. And so, but he was different. So I kind of cornered him, and I was like, so, what, this is what I think this is. And I just went on this rant about, what I really thought was going on in the world and what Masonry really was, and all this stuff. And he just stopped me and he said, you know more about this than any of these men in the lodge. And I was like, what? And he's like, they're all third degree. And I knew exactly what he meant, that they're just kept in the dark and fed shit like a mushroom. And then he looked at my girlfriend, actually, who was standing right beside me, and he said, no man can ask another man to become a Mason, but his girlfriend can. And so it was like, he found a way to say it like really indirectly, and that's how all that went down. It started with a lunch at the sub shop in Mendocino County. But anyways, what I was going to tell you about is the Blue Star, the Blue Star prophecy of the Hopi, and the connection to Freemasonry, and a whole lot of other crazy shit all over the planet. Sirius is wild. It's wild. So let's start with the Hopi. They have this Blue Star prophecy, right? But they also have secret handshakes to identify the keepers of the secret knowledge. Have you ever heard anything like that before? You ever notice there's a blue star, the Blue Lodge? Don't the Masons also identify each other with secret handshakes? So you're telling me the Hopi have this Blue Star prophecy and they identify keepers of secret knowledge with a secret handshake, and the Masons also have Sirius as a major embolism of their lodge, and they identify each other with secret handshakes? That seems a little bit like out of pocket crazy, right? That's not all, though. The Dogon in Africa have accurate star charts up to 7 star systems away that we just discovered with Hubble like 10 years ago. They claim to have received cannabis from aliens from Sirius, and it is actually the most advanced plant on Earth. So that seems a little bit far-fetched, but still, it's weird. Not only are they the Dogon, but it's the dog star in the English nickname, right? But it continues to get weird. It continues to get weird. I had a vision, not really like an overwhelming vision, but just like in my mind's eye. Actually, it was external, but just, I could still drive with it there because I could kind of see through it. I don't know, it's hard to explain. No drugs involved, just driving home from this weird conference with these Native Americans that were telling us about 1111 and the star tribes and stuff. And Farmington, New Mexico in 2010, I think, or 11, probably 11. And so I was driving home from that, and I suddenly saw this like blue, purple, white, red, geisha alien-looking creature with big black horns. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It happened 2 or 3 times, and then I just forgot about it. It was out of my head for 10 years. And then I was playing guitar one day, and my girlfriend said, you have this like purple alien thing that's like, I can kind of, it's like translucent, and when you're really concentrating, I can see it kind of like hovering around you, behind you. And I was like, right on, Satan is my spirit animal, that's fucking metal as hell, right? So then I'm practicing with my buddy Dustin, who's sometimes in the chat here. Dustin, if you're there, give me a thumbs up for this. So he's one day he says, man, I've seen this like purple alien demon looking thing behind you like 3 times when we were rehearsing now. And I'm like, okay, it's the other girl, the stalker actually, she didn't know him. They weren't talking. No possibility of that. So I was like, okay, well, that's weird. That's 2 people now. And then about a week later, I was playing at this bar called Wheels, and I walked by this Maori kid, full face tattoos and everything, and he stopped me and he goes, hey man, sometimes when you're playing, I can see this like purple, I was like demon alien thing, and his eyes got a little big. He's like, you know about this? And I was like, I guess, Satan is my spirit animal or something. And so what are you going to do with that kind of stuff? I just kind of like let it roll off my shoulders, didn't really worry about it. New Agers would be going, you have a spiritual attachment, and just shut up with that shit. So I went to, and what ayahuasca told me about this is true, then, you shouldn't have these things removed. It's actually a really bad idea. So I maybe a year later, I went to South America, drank ayahuasca. I'm walking along, coming back from the bathroom, and there's that purple geisha demon thing. It's not evil looking at all. It just has horns like a demon, And I hear Pachamama say, remember this? And I'm like, yep, sure do. She's like, would you like to know what it is? Sure would. All right, well, you know how physicists say that one object can be in 2 places? Like, yeah. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but apparently, it's not 2 objects. It's 1 object in 2 places. It's like so weird that most people aren't impressed because they don't really get it, I think. But so she says, this is you as you exist on a gaseous planet in the Sirius star system. It's the 3rd thing that causes the wobble that they've observed on Sirius B, and they suspect, but they do not know yet, that there's a gas giant that didn't become a red dwarf star because of the influence of the other stars. And it's not a binary system. Is it trinary or tertiary? I don't know. So there's 3 things there, and you exist as this being also there, and that's why your friends are always seeing this thing floating around you. It's you. Another aspect of your soul. I was like, okay, that's fucking hella crazy, so thank you for that. And then I go into the teepee, and I actually told everyone what she had told me, and my partner was there, and she was also present when I decided to look this up about 10 days later. And so 5 days after the ceremony, a paper had been published saying that they had maybe not proven, but better evidence that it's actually a gas giant that is causing the wobble, and it didn't become a red dwarf because of the influence of the other 2 stars. The chances that ayahuasca would just randomly cause my brain to come up with this shit, I don't know astrophysics, so at that point I was like, damn, man, what does that say about, ayahuasca for one thing, and just about the universe in general? And I was given more information about what this being does, and a few days after that, I found a writing by Alice Bailey, who was one of Blavatsky's students, saying there are these beings on a planet near Sirius B that do exactly what ayahuasca was saying that they do. So that was a hell of a week, and so that's my contribution to the Sirius legends, but it gets weirder. About a month after that, I discovered the Kofan, who are a tribe near where I was in Ecuador, also claim to communicate with beings from Sirius when they drink ayahuasca. So we have a whole shit ton of weirdness around this Sirius situation. There's also the book Cosmic Trigger 1, Final Secret of the Illuminati, written by Robert Anton Wilson, about being in communication telepathically with an alien from Sirius B. I think he called it Roger or something. And eventually, he when it was published, his daughter was beaten to death walking home from work. And I think he had another daughter, so he decided to start saying that he went insane and that you shouldn't take that book seriously. But I think he just was concerned that it might have been connected to publishing that book. And if you read the book, it does not come off at all like the ravings of an unhinged mind. It's absolutely lucid, and you would think it's all correct, you know. So, highly recommended. All right, let me look at the chat here, man. I'm really getting tired, so I have to fly tomorrow too. Let's see, any questions? Yeah, I was a Mason very briefly. I left the United States, fully intended to return, and I just didn't. So probably the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, honestly, in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm grateful for the experiences I've had here, you know, and my son exists and stuff, but that was a huge mistake. It was a huge mistake to leave the lodge because, you know, you really do have connections, and I think it would pretty much make you an unstoppable force. So I'm waiting for something to happen, a certain something, and then when I go back to the States, I'll go back groveling to the master of the lodge there in Ukiah and be like, dude, you're not going to believe what happened over the last fucking decade or whatever it's been. Almost 6 years. All right, I don't see any questions there. And would you recommend Freemasonry just because one has interest in mysticism? Yeah. I mean, you can study like almost everything that you formerly was secret up to the 33rd degree. You can find all this. It's all leaked. I think the reason I have this book is that it, when Masons would die, their widows don't know any better. They don't open it up and see like, oh wait, this book says you're not supposed to have it if you're not a Freemason. So that's why you can find it on Amazon and in used bookstores. I've seen it now a couple times in used bookstores. Like, it's not super uncommon because there's a lot of fucking Freemasons and a lot of them have died and a lot of them had wives that didn't know that they're not supposed to donate the books. I am not a member in good standing currently, no. But in this book, actually, Albert Pike says that there are Masons that have never entered a lodge because initiation can happen on the rays of the sun. In fact, one of the craziest fucking things that's ever happened to me in my life probably may have been one of those solar initiations because I was walking, well, all right, so I was sitting in my house, and during this period I had this dialogue with this part of my subconscious or a being, or I don't know what. It definitely had access to preternatural knowledge, though, like stuff that no human could know, for sure. There's no question about that. In fact, I wanted to talk to Danny Carey from Tool because he was, studying the same kind of stuff, and also I just wanted to prove that this was real, and I drove my car right to him in California at a club called the Baked Potato. I didn't check. Somebody did tell me when I was about 2 blocks away that he was there. But yeah, that was nuts. And I got stuck in Vegas for 3 days, so for the timing to be exactly right for me to intersect with him right there, without stalking him or anything. So that's just one example of how insane this got. And also Native Americans, when they saw me during this period, would say crazy shit to me. And their relations were not good in that part of, they'd never spoken to me before. Navajo, Dene down there, A Dene girl brought me home during one of those periods, despite the fact that when we walked out, an elder looked at her and was like, you should watch them, whatever the fuck, Dene is impossible to even imitate. It's the craziest goddamn language. Swar is even weirder, I think, but this big. She brought me home, and this like big tall medicine man was walking down the street one time, and he goes, a white man walking between the world. You don't see that every day. And there was a little short, squat one with him, and he's leaned up against the wall, and he's like, this is Nighthorse, the most respected medicine man in the Navajo Nation. Whatever he's going to tell you, you had better listen, or something like that, We ended up laying in a parking lot and talking until the sun came up. It was fucking crazy. But there was definitely something going on, There's no question that something was going on. And one day it called me outside, and it said, you need to go do a solar ritual. And I was like, I don't do rituals. Magic is for dummies. Basically, I wasn't into it. It's not that I didn't think that there was more to the universe or whatever. I did, but I was not. I had a different marker for what I tolerated as considering to be possible, and so I went outside and I started walking, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go do this because it's stupid, and I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out there and like bow to the sun or something? I mean, this is just dumb. So as soon as I pivoted on my heel, my phone beeps in my pocket, and I knew instantly that it was going to be some fucking message from this consciousness. So I pulled the phone out, opened it up, and it says, you and your brothers will echo this gospel to the four corners of the globe, and yet the sun shines on. Right? The sun was going down, so it was telling me I needed to hurry. It turned out that was from the redneck singer of my band from the swamps in Texas. I'm not saying dude isn't deep. He is, but he didn't talk like that. And later I asked him why he sent me that message, and he's like, I have no clue, bro. Seriously. So I didn't check at the time, though. It didn't matter. I knew who it was really from. And I went out to the field, and I sat on a rock, and this voice in my head is like, raise the energy. And I was like, how? Like, what does that fucking mean, And it's like, just quit playing stupid, man. You've been doing this for aeons. And I'm like, all right. So I sit Indian style and just kind of like focus on trying to just lift the energy. And all the rattlesnakes in the field instantly are like, and I was like, oh my God, this is real. What the fuck? And so I'm listening to the rattlesnakes, and I'm sitting on the rock, and then I'm like, okay, what now? And the thing goes, well, remember how you figured out a few days ago that when things pass through the veil, this Fourier transform that converts the ideal to the actual, they get reversed? And I was like, yeah. And it goes, what is your name backwards? And I was like, what? Harley? Yell-Ra? 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 So I'm out there doing a sun ritual, and this fucking voice tells me this. What's your name backwards? Yell-Ra? 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 So I start screaming Ra at the sun at the top of my lungs, and these purple fucking like tendrils start shooting out of it everywhere, which I later found out were real. It was real. It was the biggest solar storm in 26,000 years, estimated. So, whatever that voice in my head was that was telling me what to do and how to do it, clearly fucking knew that the solar storm was happening. Like, no question. So, I mean, otherwise, this is a whole lot of fucked up coincidences. And then so I found out the next day driving to work that I went into the gas station to buy an energy drink, and I looked at the newspaper, and it was like massive solar storm, estimated to be the biggest in 26,000 years. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I caused that. I'm saying I think that whatever that was that I was communicating with knew that it was happening. And it's very likely that it was the sun itself, I think, because how it appears to us initiates is that that consciousness, I mean, obviously it comes from light. There's only two things in the universe, light and void. Matter is light in a standing wave. It's frozen light. The Kabbalah had it right. Drizzles down from beyond the veil, crystallizes into matter, and then is redintegrated at the end of the process. So, man, a really bad time to lose my train of thought. I was going somewhere. In the field, particles, what we think of as particles, aren't really particles. Energy is not a substance. It is a tendency in a certain area. That's really all. There's nothing there. But it is electromagnetism or light in some form. And so just as a particle is actually just kind of a bunched up part of the field, it's not really like a dot or anything, it's more like a scrunched up part of the field, we think. Microcosm, macrocosm, as above, so below, but after another fashion. And so our brains are loaded with magnetite, which causes density in the field, just like a particle. And the particle does stuff with apparent awareness, right? Electrons know when they're being watched. So density in the field, consciousness. So if this is correct, that means that stars are fucking super conscious. Because, you know, light and magnetism and density and whatnot. So that's a wrap, kids. I hope everyone got a tremendous amount of value from this. If you didn't, it's probably got more to do with you than the material, and I would suggest that you revisit this stuff and get yourself a copy of Morals and Dogma and the Kabbalion and the Book of Lies, so falsely called, The Wanderings of the One Thought of Frater Perdurabo, which is in itself untrue, is the full title of that book. Also called Breaks. Needed lots of title for that one. What else? What else should you read? Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, Morals and Dogma. All of this stuff is good for you. And join my Patreon. My patrons, you know, we have a saying that if you're not a patron, you're a bitch. So if you don't want to be a bitch, then join the Patreon. Seriously though, I'm really trying to make some things happen, and funding, it takes funding to do anything. So being demonetized and deprioritized because of censorship, they really don't like me telling people to question all narratives, to abandon all the political parties, to think for yourself and question authority, and so I don't get traction like I probably would otherwise even if I was just monetized. So that's a wrap, cats. I will see my patrons on Wednesday. The rest of you, well, actually, I'll probably pop on when I'm in the other city. You know, who knows what I'll find walking around there to share with everyone. And I appreciate each and every one of you, whether you're a patron or not. But I appreciate those of you that are patrons considerably more. You can also make one-time contributions to the channel by any of the addresses in the description and in the chat. So let me check for questions one more time, and if si hay nada, estamos final, terminado. May is a half bitch. No, that's cool. I mean, you're always around, so you'll get in there eventually. Oh, and by the way, those of you that have signed up for FaceTime, you have to tell me when. You know, I send people messages on the Patreon, and no one ever responds. So, you know, if you're paying for these windows of time. By the way, everyone that has signed up for those says their life is totally transformed, and I see it. You know, one person, in fact, you know, there's a major transition that happens when you reach a certain like healing threshold, right, and a certain threshold of knowledge, where you go from stuffing, you know, crap. You know the song Stinkfist by Tool? Basically, overstimulation numbs me, but I would not want you any other way, and all that kind of thing. You know, it's part of what it's about, is like just cramming this hole in our being full of stuff that is not generative. And you really know that things have changed when your cramming becomes generative and has output, and there is creation. So, you know, it's kind of how I measure it. Your success is your proof. And this person has gone from being just angry and lost and, you know, just not doing anything really productive to writing books. And like, I mean, you know, so this program of mine really does change lives. And it's unfortunate that I have few clients because I guess I hate monetizing myself, honestly. Like, I'm averse to it, which is problematic as hell, obviously. So I'm trying to do better and market a little bit and stuff. In the sense of making people like you, in the sense of making people like you, like in the book, How to Influence People and Win Friend. What? Oh, does Freemasonry require a social persona? It requires you to have certain etiquette and certain boundaries and ethics, but I don't know so much about a social persona. I mean, if you don't fraternize with your fratters, you're not going to reap so many benefits. I mean, I wish I still had the card that the Master of the Temple gave me that said basically, like, once you're in here, there's a global superpower that has your back, and we have doors everywhere, invisible doors that are not accessible to anyone that's not a Mason. So when I say that leaving was one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my life, that's a large part of what I'm referencing, because, before I entered, the Master of the Temple told me that I had, already the knowledge, most of it, So, I've been studying this stuff forever, and I am not saying that I wasn't interested in finding out more stuff, but the networking was a huge part of it, just to, it's like what I'm trying to do, in my world is bring the right people together for the right reasons and try to get some positive generation going, right? And despite what you heard, fool, the Masons are generally way ahead of me. It's just that there's a lot of old crusty Freemasons. It's not the evil that people think. It's just, most of them are older than boomers now, and they're having a really hard time bringing young people in because everyone thinks it's this evil thing, and it's just not. There's a left-hand path, and you're free to choose that path. That's true. It's not smart, but you're free to do it. I mean, it is smart if it's really your true will, I mean, everyone serves a purpose, including the brothers of the left-hand path. In fact, a lot of people, when they study Hermeticism and that type of mysticism, and they hear that, that good creates evil and evil creates good, which is absolutely fact. The opposites actually generate each other. They're not just there to give you perspective. They create each other. So, and then it kind of hits you like, well, wouldn't that imply that the evilest being on in the universe is the savior then? Because if evil creates good and good creates evil, God is the devil. Like it's gnarly when you really get deep into this kind of knowledge. And it's not dogma. Everything is demonstrable. Everything is borderline provable. For example, when we say that everything contains its contradiction and everything contains its opposite, even if you just look at the glyph for 0, it is a line that you could follow forever, round and around and around and around, and then an empty part in the middle. So even the symbol for it contains infinity and nothingness simultaneously. It's a little odd, isn't it? What happens if you divide by 0? Infinity? So you're telling me that you can extract infinity from nothingness? Infinity can't fit into, you can't take anything out of something that isn't there. You know what I mean? And there's another good analogy. All numbers are infinite because you can divide them forever. Every number is infinite. There is no difference. And there's a lot of other stuff along those lines, where we actually have proofs of the metaphysical ideas that we talk about. And if you don't, you should shut up because you got nothing. That's the reality. One of probably the biggest problem on the entire planet is faith-based religions and beliefs. You believe something just because you want to, or because a bunch of other people do. There seems like there's a consensus about it, but it's actually just some new age crap that's popular on the internet. And then you have all these people believing they have parasitical entities that are causing all of their dumbfuckery, and that some, shaman or something can wiggle their fingers around and remove it from them, and then they're all better. And then you have a person running around thinking they're healed when they're actually just worse than ever. I mean, this is when I say falsehood is evil. This is what I mean. And believing in things that you don't understand. Don't you guys listen to Stevie Wonder? But yeah, I mean, that's the fundamental difference between the science of Illuminism and the science of the initiate and the science of the occult and the science of magic, the most subtle and difficult branch of physics, and like other types of spirituality where you're just following a doctrine, a dogma, whatever, and you can't run a world by a book of religion, not by a heap or a lump or a smidgen of foolish rules of ancient date designed to make you all feel great while you fold, spindle, and mutilate the unbelievers from a neighboring state. Because they don't go for what's in the book, and that makes them bad. So verily we must choppeth them up and stompeth them down, or maybe rent a nice French bomb to poof them out of existence, leaving their real estate right where it is, so that we can use it as temples in which to praise our God, because he wrote this book here, didn't he? He knows what he's doing. He can't be dumb. He said he made us in his image, so if we're dumb, then God is dumb, and maybe even a little ugly on the side. I always end up in that rant. Who is this Ipsissimus asking questions, fundamental questions about Freemasonry? If you're going to call yourself Ipsissimus, you had better get knowing, son, with a capital G, G-N-O-W. Well, yes, I view God and the devil as the same entity. Clearly, I don't understand how people think there could possibly be any kind of designation. I think viewing either as an active participant in the day-to-day affairs of humanity is a little bit silly. It's more that there are influences exerting themselves that have effects that require that there are antinomies and opposites that are interacting and producing things based on their interactions. It's not like there's like God trying to make everyone be good and nice and the devil trying to make everyone evil, I mean, people that really believe that there are like demonic forces all around that are trying to destroy humanity, and yet you can like go in your kitchen and make dinner and you're fine, like 99.99% of the time. It's a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, if there were invisible, evil, higher dimensional beings trying to fuck up humanity, look at us, we're pathetic. We can barely tie our shoes, We would be wasted already. We would all be gone. There would be no humanity left. I mean, I don't know. They're just really some silly ideas out there that don't help anyone. They really don't. But I'm not saying these things are totally unreal either, because the best way that I've heard this explained was Robert Anton Wilson, which he actually stole from Crowley. Crowley said it differently, but Robert Anton Wilson actually was rephrasing a lot of stuff that Crowley said. I've discovered over the years. Like, what is it? Crowley said, I spilled something on my keyboard. Crowley said that when we talk about astrology, for example, we're not talking about the physical planets. We are organizing our cataloging different aspects of consciousness and creating awareness of the subtle relationships between things in the universe, but it's not really the influence of Mars. That's just a symbol that we use to, and he said, when we talk about, the angel in the sun, I can't remember its name, Theosophiel or something, we're not talking about a literal angel, but these things are real. They're just not real in the way that the IRS is real. So, it's just a much more subtle distinction, I guess, between real and unreal. But, capable of possessing you and making you go insane and stuff, only if you believe in them. That study after study has concluded this, and I think it's really unfortunate that people don't make the right choices in regards to this stuff. It causes a lot of mental health problems. If you don't want to get bitten by a vampire, don't invite it into your fucking house. It's not hard. It's easy. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please go join my Patreon. It's difficult to dance with the devil with your foot in your mouth and your head up your ass, so let me help you get it out. And what is this? Chaos Ipsissimus? Ipsissimus is like a fully realized magician, so it's like basically a god in a meat suit. We suspect that there have been a few in the last 100 years that have been more or less public figures that were close to that. And if I said who, some of you would for sure roll your eyes. So I'm not gonna. But yeah, an Ipsissimus is the highest rank in the certain mystery traditions that you can attain, and it basically means that you are completely, fully enlightened and capable of, stopping a man's heart with your thoughts. Or worse, or better, depending on your designation. Money is not the most harmful faith-based religion. It is not money. It is what people do with it, and it's the context. It's the context. It's the culture. It's not capitalism. It's not any ism. It's the consciousness of the herd. And as it says in the book of the law, society only moves by the light of genius. The herd will be destroyed in mass. And so when people are like, damn, what is all this population agenda stuff about? Come on, you guys. Come on now. Artificial intelligence. Rivers testing positive for cocaine. Ocean testing positive for benzodiazepines. The ocean. The fucking ocean. Go to a Walmart and tell me that there's good cause in there to, how do I say this without sounding like a complete lunatic? Basically, it's like, imagine that you are the emperor of the earth, my title, actually, the emperor of the world, and you get a paper on your desk that says, most of humanity is literally retarded, and they're consuming everything in their path and creating all this waste. And 90% of the fish that were in the ocean in 1970 are gone. 90%. The coral reefs are dead. The Amazon is disappearing. There's no mosquitoes in the jungle in a lot of places. No mosquitoes in the jungle. You know what happens after that? The bats, the birds, the fucking monkeys, like everything, just domino. Psh. We're on the verge of a mass extinction event. And, I know if you're a conservative, you're like, oh, it's conspiracy. You're a fucking idiot if you actually think that. Like, you can literally just go out and look, It is in 1888, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn's initiation statement that they gave to the new initiate was, inheritor of a dying world, quit the night and seek the day. Inheritor of a dying world in 1888. That's what they're telling people. So that's what I'm saying about the population reduction thing. AI, what are you going to do with all these people? What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with them? And what are they doing, most of them? Sitting around consuming garbage media, just like trailer parks full of... we literally have trailer parks dedicated to pedophiles. You know what I mean? And here's the thing, you guys. Have you all heard about a certain thing you probably shouldn't do because you might just drop dead? I don't know what it is. I can't remember. Because the algorithm will... anyways, it's not true either, It's fake news. But you know what I mean? You guys know that you probably should eat organic? Have you heard that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you know where you should probably stay away from right now? The places where you'd be likely to get nuked or oh, you do? Huh, that's weird. Why are they killing all the sheep? If it's about ruling, with an iron fist, and why are they killing the sheep? Why aren't they going after the people that are awake and aware? If they can control the information, why do we know that we should not eat Bill Gates' McDonald's food? Why do we know that Bill Gates has an exclusive contract with McDonald's? Why do we know this stuff? Why are they telling us? Almost as if they want the smart and illuminated ones to live through what's about to happen. IllumiGnati, not the sheeple. I mean, it's just a guess based on all the fucking evidence. God damn, man. When they told you everything you know is wrong, they weren't kidding. Like, it's far more interesting of a story than, and there's way less reason to be afraid. If you're smart and pursuing illumination, you probably will catch wind of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and, you know, everything is on the table for you to make the proper choices. And the thing is, you can disagree with it all you want, you know. I don't necessarily, you know, I don't want anyone to suffer. It's like having an understanding of something it's not approval. It just is what it is, you know. Society only moves by the light of genius. The herd will be destroyed in mass. This was 1914 that he wrote that. So, I mean, you know, it's like you just kind of have to choose what you are. You know, you can't fight it. Go fight it. Go ahead. Go fight it. Go overturn them. Go do it. So you know, if you know the rules of the game, play. You want to sit around and whine, you can do that. But yeah, the writing's on the wall. Signs, symbols, hints, clues, writing's on the wall, the rest is up to you. Everybody can't come. It just can't happen. You know, and of course hippie types will always say, oh, there's plenty of room on the planet, and that's really beside the point. It's entirely beside the fucking point. So anyways, the guy gets the paper on his desk, and it says, like, the game's over for everyone, or you have to get rid of 2/3 of them. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And if you're going to do it, you're going to pick the most useless and suffering populations, religious extremists that can't be cured. What are you going to do? You're going to blow them up. You know, you're going to provoke them to get it over with. You know what I mean? Like, if you really understand the management process on this planet, it stops looking so much like evil and just sort of like the consequences, the inevitable consequences of like some bad choices and greed and stuff, you know? I mean, and there's, you know, it's a tough spot to be in, to have to make these calls about what to do. I'm glad it's not my job, but I'm also very glad that I understand how it all works, because it's not quite as dumb and insane as people think. It really isn't. It's much more, you know, brilliant, really. Now, there are things I don't understand, you know. Why did they cultivate this huge mass of morons if this was the end game? I don't really understand what that was about. They definitely did that on purpose, you know, engineered all these empty, vapid, fucking lame-ass matrix muggles, you know. Like, what are they for? What they were for is driving the economies and the engines of creation. That's what they're for. But creation causes destruction. And so, you know, the tidal wave of that sort of manual labor and all that kind of stuff that comes along with it is over. It's over. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with all these fucking people? You know, and people say, oh, well, they're about to come over the gates and eat the elite. They're about to eat your ass, too. You know what I mean? The cities are overrun with lunacy. Like, there ain't no turning this tide back. They're going to get rid of a whole fucking shit ton of people. That's what's happening. So, I mean, I received all that information directly into my brain from the rays of the sun like 20 years ago, and I could not take it that seriously, you know? But now that I'm here, I'm like, shit, that was true. Okay, so we've ended up going a little bit longer than, and probably pissing off a lot of people. Like, this guy's not cool, man. Listen to this. It's not, I didn't design this world. I'm just observing it and explaining it, you know. I didn't create it. Don't get mad at me. So anyways, you guys, I am going to fuck right off because it is late-ish and I am very tired. And I do not see any new patrons yet. You guys better get up in there. Where are you going to get content like this? Somebody did delete their Patreon because of the shit that I said just now. See, I told you every fucking time I talk about this, somebody is like, oh, I'm out of here, man. This isn't cool. Oh, my God. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, let's all stay in the dark and get blindsided by this instead of, like, actually having awareness about what is actually happening. That, you're right, I should just shut right the fuck up before I ruin everything for the actual evil people on the planet. Man, see you guys, this is like a very difficult, he who speaks the truth has few friends. That's the reality. So, I managed to have the opposite effect that I was going for tonight. I'm going to bed. Thank you guys so much for not being whoever that was. They got their panties in a bunch because I told them the truth, and good night.